Hi, everybody. Welcome to SFO chapter. I just wanted to discuss about CSSFO vision and what we are trying to do. So we want to give back to the community and help individuals grow by training and also empower them. Innovation and research. We want to help them in standards and certification. So we are a set of people who would like to help the students as well as the community or the freshers to understand more about cloud security and then export this place. So some of the details on why you need to join the chapter. So definitely networking with peers, you'll get to find subject matter experts. You can talk to them. And important thing is you can also contribute in writing white papers as a group. You can conduct in peer reviews, get access to white paper and trainings. This is a lot of huge resources is available for everybody to explore. So there are quite a few training materials and white papers available, which you can go through. Then gain valuable insight from the industry professionals, discuss cloud security vulnerabilities and brainstorm solutions, and be a leader in cloud security field. So these are some of the benefits when you join the chapter. Of course, code of conduct, professional behavior is expected, respectful and inclusive environment, responsible communication we look for, and then communication with laws and regulation. Now, it is very important in order to avail all these opportunities. Please join CSSFO chapter. This is the LinkedIn link which you can join. I will share this later, and then all you need to do is log in, and then these are some of the benefits which I already discussed. We also request you to join LinkedIn. The second thing is Inner Circle. That is where you will get the white papers and other things to access. And lastly, our chapter LinkedIn page. So with that, let's start this session. In this session, Woody will, so this is a fireside chat on Zero Trust. So Woody, if you could take over, he will be the moderator for this session.
Thank you so much. Hello and welcome everyone to this session on enabling zero trust architecture through least privilege. I have the privilege of being today's moderator. My name is Odie Gray. I'm president of Diversity Cyber Council, and I am joined with a all-star panel. We have Satish, who is the enterprise security architecture expert. We have Arun, who is the cloud architecture expert, and we have Abhishek, who is an expert in IAM. And we will be sharing insights on zero trust today, and ultimately just explaining what the best zero trust strategy is to implement in a virtual environment. So with that being said, I'd like to pass it to each person to do a brief introduction for those who don't already know you. So we'll start with Satish.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I didn't introduce myself. So I am Satish. I am chapter lead for CSA/SFO. I have around 23 years of experience. Basically, I'm a security architect. On a day-to-day basis, I do design reviews, so check for threats. In a way, it's more of a threat modeling, understand what is the risk, provide the risk details to the product teams, and then help them build a secure product. So that is my role, and I'm very excited to be part of this fireside chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Satish. Next up, Arun.
Hi guys, I'm Arun Dhanaraj. I'm working as a cloud and security architect in one of the global financial bank. So I have around 15 years of experience in, cloud and technology and and the security side. So I'm happy to participate on the fireside chat.
Thank you, Arun. And last but not least, Abhishek.
Thanks, Odi. So, hello everyone. My name is Abhishek. I'm founder and CEO of Atharva. It's a stealth mode startup. We just started with that effort around access governance. Before Atharva, I was working as director of product management in identity and access management and compliance area with Salesforce for almost 3 years. In total, I have over a decade of experience in identity governance space, and I'm very excited to have this opportunity today to share my thoughts and experience with you on Zero Trust today.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Much appreciated. So to get started, let's begin to provide a simplified definition of zero trust and the value of its implementation and adoption. Why is it an important practice in securing a digital environment, in your opinion, Abhishek?
So, zero trust is very, is a buzzword right now. Everybody is talking about it. It's been a couple of years, like in the entire industry, in the security teams or people who are working with the security teams, it's a very popular keyword, right? Especially, the reason is especially post-pandemic, right? When people were working from home, there was a mass migration of the workforce outside the office. Before that, everybody was going to a particular physical location. They were set within the boundaries where they had to badge in, and they had to log in into a VPN, and then they were working on the confined set of devices. That is not the scenario anymore. People now, today they are logging in from, let's say, US. Then tomorrow they can go to South America. Then day after tomorrow you can find them, somewhere else in some other part of the world. So they are constantly on the move. And now let's say if for my employer, I'm logging in as Abhishek from some my own device, and some employers have started supporting bring your own device technology as well, right? How would they make sure that I'm really Abhishek? I mean, when we talk about cybersecurity basics and principles, identification and authentication are the top two pillars, right, which we talk about. So how would my identity be verified that I'm really Abhishek, right? So that is where zero trust comes into the picture. Maybe it is a strategy in which just simply says that whatever your users are trying to log in or authenticate or authorize, right, continuously verify and validate. Just don't do it one time thing, and have a layer of multi factor authentication to be implemented around this whole thing, right? It really depends on how many layers you want to apply for authentication, based on the critical nature of the asset they are trying to access, right? But zero trust has become really, really more important, and has actually become relatively more mature in past couple of years because of these reasons.
Wow, that was some great insight. And to add to that, I would say that honestly, the two biggest areas, in my opinion, of as it relates to cyber risk is insider threat, which directly correlates to zero trust, and third-party risk, which is quickly becoming one of the bigger risk areas. So I want to pass it to Satish or Arun. Do you have any thoughts to expand upon why it is important and valuable to implement zero trust to secure a digital environment?
Yeah, I'll take that. So before even getting there, I would like to step back a bit and then give an overview on what are we talking about. So basically before getting into all these things, sorry, a lot of people are trying to attend. I'm not able to, just admitting them. Okay, so before going further, I would like to discuss three concepts. Number one, what exactly we are trying to solve. Number two, and what is zero trust model? And number three, how did zero trust model become so famous? So starting with number one. So what are we trying to solve? We are trying to solve secure access between data and an object. So at the crux of everything, it is the data we are trying to protect from the objects. Let's take an example. For example, a user want to access his bank balance details. So bank balance details is the data. Now user is an object. Now how does he access securely? So in order to there are multiple protocols and principles. So zero trust model is just one of them. In order to access securely any object, it could be a user, or it could be a web service, or it could be anything. So whoever wants to access the data, they need to be they should follow certain privileges and protocols. So this is at the root what exactly is happening. So zero trust is just one model. So we have a lot of models, but zero trust is one such model. So what is zero trust model? Zero trust model was, again, NIST came up with zero trust model. I mean, a lot of people initially had the discussion, but ultimately NIST, they came up with, I think it's 800-207 is the publication which they did, and what it says. So NIST says that following things are very important. One is least privilege, and then give least privilege again. Give only access what is required. I'll just summarize. I mean, there are so many principles. I'll just summarize some of them. One is least privilege. Second thing is, so even when you give access, it has to be monitored every now and then. It's not that you give access and that is the end of it. So you need to monitor. And then network segmentation. These are some of the concepts. They have some 10 to 15 principles. So what you need to do is, if you are adhering to zero trust, you need to adhere that. So that is number 2, which we need to understand. So what is zero trust? Number 3 I want to talk about is how zero trust became so famous. I mean, it is just few things which was already there. Privilege, least privilege, everything are the similar, same security concepts. But why zero trust became so famous? So once they released this paper, a couple of things happened. One is, this is my opinion actually. So one of the major thing is COVID. So during COVID, a lot of people started working in remote. So that could be one of the main reason where the perimeter, the traditional way of perimeter security thing that model was not working. Right? We have all our data centers protected by a perimeter, and then people try to access it. Now, a lot of remote employees try to access that environment. Again, it was overhead on the corporate network. Number 2, SaaS-based products. Sorry. So a lot of people started using SaaS-based products. That also resulted in network bandwidth. Again, a lot of latency came into picture because they need to access the corporate network, and then from there go to the SaaS-based application. So in order to, so this is one, the COVID. Second thing is, there was a federal, I think federal agency, there was an attack, I think everybody would have heard, SolarWinds attack. So it was on supply chain. So basically what happened, SolarWinds attack, the hackers were able to see the documents of all the federal government agencies, and or to some extent they were able to authorize it. So that was the major instance which made federal government to roll out a mandate that by 2024, all the federal agencies must adhere to zero trust. So because of these instances, zero trust model gained a lot of popularity. So these are the 3 things which I wanted to talk about before getting into how do you protect via least privilege?
Yes, and to add on to
Yeah.
that, in my opinion, I think least privilege is kind of the grandfather of zero trust, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you know how zero trust has evolved from least privilege is in the manner that you mentioned, which is the continuous monitoring and the mindset that we have everything is potentially malicious, regardless if it's in the internal network or external network, rather if it's internal or a third party vendor, right? Everything is assumed to be malicious. So it must have constant re-verification or authorization to determine privilege status, right? So that's the difference thing. It's an inherent mistrust, right, of access, regardless of the entity or object, as you mentioned. So yeah, really great job there. Let's get straight to it and tap into your subject matter expertise. Abhishek, tell me from a authorization perspective, how is zero trust applicable? And I know we hit on it a little bit more, but can you narrow down how zero trust operates off authorization?
Yeah. So thanks for that question, Odi. Actually, I would like to answer that question jointly with Arun, because mostly these days people are revolving their target application as their cloud applications as platforms as their target applications mostly, right? So those are the most complex structures which people are managing. So I would, like Arun to kind of first explain us that, if that's okay with you, that what does least privilege access control means for cloud infrastructure, because that will also help me to shape my answer on authorization overall.
Mhm.
So Arun, can you please educate us on, like, what does it mean by applying principle of least privilege in your cloud infrastructure realm?
So if you see like Abhishek, like the cloud environment are no being like very complicated. Like that means like we have multiple accounts, we have various platforms. So each and every platform is managing is very difficult, right? So even like so we call like IDP, like any IDP provider, we can manage entire platform in one IDP provider, right? So in this concept, like least privilege is very important. Like when users are given more rights than they needed. So it means like so some users might over provision like certain window. So we have not revalidate or reconsidered like what exact permission they needed, right? So in this case, like every so for the best practices, what I suggest is every time like when you provide an access, we have to go with the least privilege what exactly the project requirement is, and then based on that, we should not give a over permission to uh, to give the more access to the users so that they can do whatever they want, and also they can able to control the other resources as well, right? So said that like one of the best practice I also say, like every certain window you have to revalidate the privileges so that we can keep an track who acted for what, you know
Right. Yep. So thank you for that. So thank you for providing me that platform to answer Odie's question, right? With like, what does zero trust means in realm of authorization, right? So let's start with as Odie you rightly said, that least privilege could be called as grandfather of zero trust. But in my experience so far, I have not seen one particular proper implementation of least privilege end to end, which could be claimed as, like, this is a very satisfactory implementation of least privilege access control. People are chronically suffering from over provisioning of access or
Mm.
under provisioning of access, right?
Mhm.
So to understand the ideology of zero trust, it is also important to understand why we want to do it. It is not just because of the pandemic thing, or it is not because of the shift in working style. It was much needed before. It's just that pandemic has triggered the importance or critical nature of the whole concept, right? So
Yeah.
if it is okay, if that's fine, then I would like to kind of quickly review the definition of least privilege access control and how it is implemented or how it should be implemented, right? So the principle POLP, or principle of least privilege access control, says that everybody in an enterprise should have minimum level of access they need to get their job done, right? And in order to apply principle of least privilege access control, people like we need to identify the resources and action that each user needs to in order to perform their job. We need to assign roles or permissions to each user based on their job responsibilities. And as soon as their job responsibility changes, we need to make sure that we take away the previously granted permissions and grant them new or provision them new permissions, right? But from the whole equation, the whole understanding of the landscape or the scope of responsibilities is missing, right? Is missing. So in now coming to the reason why I said that, because in authorization, the strongest way to achieve zero trust, implement zero trust architecture principles are to make sure that your users, your access, your data are governed properly, right? So you are monitoring your users or governing your users, you're managing your access properly, and access to the data is very important, like what kind of data it is, and having that visibility to that factor. And the fourth pillar is, like, you need to understand the reason why that user needs access to this data, right? So that whole authorization model, I mean, as Satish was earlier mentioning about the controls to implement zero trust, right? Like when you talk about, we can divide it, our whole organization, our enterprise, into three different physical categories and one logical category. Three categories being user data and user access and data, and logical category of reasoning, right? Why? So in users category, the pillars are identity governance. Then you need to understand what are all the attributes of this user, right? How do you, like, whether this user is a full-time employee, like how are you governing the whole life cycle of that user from joiner, mover, leaver program, right? You need to have a centralized identity warehouse for that, right? And then on top of that, you have to make sure that there are strong analytics, like strong identity analytics around it. It's not just that you are bringing in data and doing a dump of it. You have to derive meaningful information out of it as well, right? And then you have to identify or categorize your critical assets, your crown jewels of your organization. And then you have to make sure all the privilege access management controls are applied around that. So that part comes under identity governance or users part. And once you come to access part, right, it is access management. And in access part also, like, we have achieved as an industry a lot of we have covered a lot of ground with adaptive authentication. We see a lot of fancy startups coming out in adaptive authentication realm. You see biometrics, face detection, fingerprint detection, retina detection, multi-factor authentication, multiple layers, right? So the authentication market has really, really matured. And I mean, there's still room for improvement, but still it is, we can say that kind of time we have spent in it and the kind of output we have received is a satisfactory approach, right? But now what about adaptive authorization? That part is still missing. People
Mm.
are still creating requests for access manually.
Mm.
People are still approving requests manually. You still are pushing your end users who actually do not want to deal with your security tools and security team. You are forcing them every quarter or every year to review millions of line items for access certifications, right? And you are
Yes.
putting a sword of compliance on their throat to actually get it done, and they leave their productive job, which actually make dollars for your company, to do all this manual reviews in Excel sheet. And no matter how fancy tools you are buying, right, this thing is still there, and nobody likes it, but you gotta have to do it because it's a compliance requirement, right? And now, once you are done with that, or once,
Yeah, I agree. And that,
You
I
have
apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt. Continue.
the Odi, I think your video and audio are a little bit flaky. I think your network side is kind of.
Oh, can you hear me now?
We can, but it's like very flaky, and it's better now. It's better.
Yeah, it's better.
My apologies, team. I was just commending you on that incredible breakdown. And to your point, if you have observed that least privilege has not been appropriately practiced, then of course, inherently, zero trust has not been practiced by standard. And it requires that scalability of authorization. And truly, the biggest risk to the zero trust model is new data, right? Is new data, new devices, things of that nature. Because if you do not have a reactive reactive process to your degree that's not manual, that somehow is able, and maybe this is where machine learning will come into play, maybe this is where AI will come into play, where you can set a rule set, right? A manager can set a rule set based on access, and AI can kind of make determinations on its own to say, well, this person reasonably would need access to this data to perform X function, right? That is the world where zero trust will actually exist and actually be of value. Right now, in
Yep.
my opinion, it's more theory than practice, right?
Yep.
But you've made excellent points about zero trust. As a consultant, I've seen so much manual requests for onboarding and for offboarding, leading to ghost users, right, that never successfully offboarded. So there's these accounts with privileges just sitting in the environment, right? And there's no one actively monitoring those accounts unless you have a great audit of IAM, which not all organizations do, unfortunately. So these are these are risks that are not even known to an organization, right? But I'll pause there because I would like to hear from Satish regarding how zero trust, some best practices to implement zero trust in enterprise architecture.
Sure, definitely. So before going there, I'll just tie all the dots. I'll just give an example. So whatever Abhishek spoke and whatever Arun spoke, so I'll just tie all the dots, and then with a small example. So let's take a healthcare system. Maybe a healthcare system, a hospital. You have employees. They'll be accessing patient data. So let's take this example. Now, how do you implement zero trust least privilege in this environment? So ideally, so when you say employees, there could be doctors, there could be guards, there could be nurses. So is it okay to give access for patients' data for everybody? No, right? So if you're applying least privileges, then you would definitely give to the doctor, right? I mean, doctor will have access to the patient records, and to some extent, nurse, they might have access, but not so much as doctors. Now, how do you implement zero trust privilege access to this? So let us talk about it. So that is normal privilege access, right? In the books. Now, when it comes to zero trust privilege access, how do you implement it? So the difference is you do the same protection, that is, you provide least access. Along with that, for example, now doctors, all the doctors will be having it's kind of a block assignment, having access to the data. Now let's split only the doctor who takes care of a certain patient, only he should have access. So you should start splitting at macro level, and then also ensure, how do you also ensure the monitoring? It also means that the same doctor has the access to the same patient's data. I mean, a different doctor should be not able to access it. So that needs to be monitored and ensure that nobody else will try to access that data. So in the organization, whenever I get design reviews for these things, the way I would look at it is I'll start from authentication piece. So identity plays a very important role. A very important role, and identity should be verified often. For example, let's take an example of a remote user who is using the company laptop. He loses the laptop. So now, and somehow the person who has got the laptop, he is able to access the data. Now, how do you verify? How does zero trust solve this situation? So the way we advise is, so there should be a time-based approach. So every hourly once it has to check. Hourly once could be an overhead, but at least there should be a hard limit where he has to enter the credentials again, right? If he is a person who does not, he might have taken the laptop, but he will not remember the user credentials, right? So authentication on a timely base needs to be verified. That is number one. And automation. So zero trust clearly says that automation, I mean, all these mechanisms should be via automation. You need to try use automation. So a single sign-on, things like that would definitely help. So we ask the product teams who develop to implement these things. And least privilege, we try to enforce a least privilege. Only access should be provided at a certain time, only for the certain people who's required, and after that automatically it has to be revoked. So time-based access is what I'm talking about. That is one we'll try to ask the product teams to implement. Then at the networking side, we ask them to do a lot of things like segmentation. So we ask them to split their data into a separate network, and then have multiple networks. So in order to reach the data, data where the data network, they need to cross multiple, like DMZ, and it could be various other things to reach there. So we ask them to put multiple gates to reach to the data. So that is network segmentation. We highly recommend them to implement. Yes, these are some of the things, and logging and monitoring that plays a crucial role. And there should be somebody watching all the time the data, monitoring if there is any logs which is doesn't look right. So those needs to be responded properly. So these are some of the things throughout enterprise we recommend the product teams to implement with respect to zero trust.
Thank you for sharing. The next question will go to Arun, and this is regarding if you can help the audience understand what are some potential challenges organizations might face when implementing zero trust in cloud environments?
So it's a great question, Ori. Like basically, like when you implement the zero trust, like first one is cross collaboration between the team, right? So we have a different team. So if you ask any team members, I mean, if you are from security team, if you go with a different team to revoke your access or else reduce, limit your access, the people not understand the why we are limit the access. They just want to have a extreme level of access to run the operation, but that is not a case. Like as a security expert, as a cloud expert, we need our infrastructure has to be secure and monitorable, as well as very least privilege. What certain access has to be provided to the daily work, right? So this cross collaboration is a one of the main complication I face, like in my past. And also like in the Satish mentioned like couple of items about how we can implement the zero trust, right? So one of the point I like to add here, like we have a condition based access policies. Okay, so for example, if someone are trying to access the users, trying to access the application for certain location. So if it's a particular on that location, we have to go with the single sign-on method. If somebody unauthorized to access from different location, they have to block or revoke the access for the users to until the revalidate the users. They are the trusted users. Then only we have to allow the users to log into the application, so that we know who is accessing from where, right? That's the way we can protect our application as well as protect our infrastructure in a zero trust manner.
Thank you for sharing. Abhishek, I'm going to give you the first stab at probably my favorite question of the night, which is how do you convince leadership to increase your cybersecurity budget to employ least privilege more efficiently and effectively?
Um, wow, that's a very tough one. So it depends on
Yes,
person to
a
person.
loaded question.
Loaded right. So see, leadership. Unfortunately, security teams or security orgs are still considered as expense houses, right? They are until unless you are in a security service company or a security product company, uh, the organization gonna look at the security teams as a source of losing money, right? But the good part is that especially after bunch of events like events were unfortunate, but their output was like one of the output was that people got a wake up call. For example, like SolarWinds, Satish was mentioning about, and the Log4j event incident and all that happened, right? And all the insider threats which companies are facing these days, which you were mentioning, OD, before, right? And as Arun was mentioning, the complex peripheral understanding of cloud architecture, right? And the kind of landscape and volume you are dealing with, right? So leadership is understanding these days that it is better to spend in more offensive approaches than defensive approaches, because since everything is virtual and so remote, they won't even realize by the time their disaster recovery and threat detection thing gonna kick in, it's gonna be too late, right? So reactive approach are the talks of early 2000s or kind of those eras. But now you're talking about within fractions of minutes the whole data is getting leaked out, right? And
Mhm.
it is, to begin with, it is so difficult to inventorize your crown jewels because there are so many, right? Your critical access is so many. It is like your privilege access management inventory is more populated and loaded than your IAM inventory from last 10 which was your IAM inventory 10 years ago, right? So, and then but they all understand money, they all understand money talk, right?
Mhm.
So if you have a way of educating them, by doing so, you are going to save X amount of dollars every year or every quarter, they will listen. I mean, if they are in their sanitized mindset, they should listen, right?
Mhm.
And for example, Arun was talking about over provisioning of access, and all those things are a problem, right? So let's just look at you apply least privilege access control as a part of zero trust architectural approach, right? Which solves your problem of over provisioning of access and under provisioning of access. So let's, for the sake of answering this question, pick over provisioning of access. It was a report last year. I don't know the facts and truths behind that report, but it was published on a public platform. So I would then honor that somebody let it publish. So it said that there was around there was around I mean, there was some numbers that there was like X amount of, 2 or 300 billion cloud waste expense last year in United States, right? And 67% of that uh, came out to be majorly because of over provisioning of access. And unfortunately, when you talk with leadership these days, right, they might even not acknowledge that over provisioning of access is a problem, because their business continuity is happening, right? And everybody is just focused on migrating to cloud, right? And they have been ignoring that all these things are coming along with the cloud. It's a package, right? The cloud comes with its own baggage. It's not as simple, right? So it's the reasoning why you want to migrate to cloud has to be very crystal clear, right? And the critical inventorization or cataloging of your assets in the cloud is more critical, right? But you have an S3 bucket. You store SSN of your customers in that S3 bucket today, right? 1 month down the lane, you remove all that data. It's not critical anymore. So you have to figure out a way to understand that, right? If you are able to give these levels of visibilities to your leadership, right? And if you're able to translate that, okay, we wasted 67% of our revenue in AWS bill last year just because of over provisioning of access. If we do this, or if we apply this control, we will be able to save 10% of the cost, right? At only, and we're going to be spending only 2% of the money which we will be saving. So there is an 8% profit overall, or savings in AWS bill in the whole year, right? So I don't understand why they should not be, letting us do it. But you have to be like, come with the numbers. Like, you cannot just throw like, I want to apply zero trust architecture because it is the thing. I want to apply artificial intelligence, right, in my shoes because it's a thing, right? I mean, it's not a thing. You have to convert that into dollar amount. Does that answer your question?
It does thoroughly at that. And um, it's interesting, a few notes you said that they must have a sanitized mind. Unfortunately, we rarely have the scenario where their mind is not preoccupied on anything but if anything, lowering the cybersecurity budget. But the phrase I like to use is spend money to save costs,
Yeah.
right? And I always get a puzzled look. Spend money, save costs. Yes, spend the money now to save the cost later.
Yep.
I would say there is a 90%, if you are in a large enterprise organization, there are areas of cost reduction you can trim uh, off your budget as it relates to technology. There are subscriptions underutilized, there's technology underutilized. You probably have a SaaS product that only 5 people use that you're paying tier top dollar on, and you probably contracted out for that. So investigate, understand how you can trim costs by reducing waste and leverage that as your pot of money for your particular initiative as it relates to least privilege. Then make the case on how this implementation will reduce risk of potential regulatory compliance fines, are data breaches. Because again, I re-echo my point from earlier. Insider threat is quickly becoming one of the biggest risk areas in cybersecurity, alongside third-party risk, right? So preparing your organization for that area of risk to make sure that you are sound and monitored and you're proactively addressing it is going to make you look like a rock star, especially if you lead the conversation with saying, hey, here goes a series of apps that have less than 25% utilization, yet we're paying X amount of dollars, in expenses, which can be reallocated to this least privilege project that will then reduce our risk exposure by 50%. That kind of conversation will get the attention of your leadership and begin to sanitize that mind, as you mentioned, Abhishek. But Arun, Satish, do you have any thoughts of your own on the topic?
Yeah, I think Abhishek covered it well. Yeah, definitely with the leadership team, you need to go with all the facts. And based on the current situation, looks like that will be in line with whatever you provide the details. So, but yeah, I think Abhishek covered it well in that area.
Exactly. So the security aspect, so we can compromise. I mean, we can compromise in saving the cost in workload or whatever, right? But in a security aspect, we cannot compromise. We have to be more secure. It's like each and every data has to be more valuable than the money, right? So we have to more secure. That's the way we can give the confidence to our customers as well as the data inside of our organization.
Mm. So each of you, can you provide a real world example of employing least privilege and some areas of why it was effective in its practice and why it benefited the organization? We'll start with Abhishek.
Okay, so Odi, can I please provide an example of where least privilege was not implemented? Because the question you asked was like kind of unreal. We
Yeah,
haven't
that's
seen that example. I haven't seen that implementation yet, right? So, I won't name the customer. It was a giant organization, very mature organization, with like user count more than like touching around 100,000 users, right? So I was talking about, how do you manage access in your cloud? And they said like, oh, we have very vast, extensive usage of cloud. We are aggressively migrating data to AWS and all that. Like, okay, fine. But how do you manage access? So they said that we create independent account for every department and every team, right? So let's say there are 50 departments in that company in one location. So there are 50 AWS accounts. And this is unfortunately, they said like, I don't know the truth or fact behind it, but they said like this is an agreed upon approach. Uh, kind of this is an agreed upon approach with AWS folks. I was flabbergasted by what they suggested. They say like we create independent accounts with independent teams, and then in that team we give admin access to everybody, and then we have a tool which measures the budget, right? If your usage of AWS goes beyond X amount of dollar in that particular month, right, it will cut down. It will like deactivate the account for that team for that particular rest of the days for that month. So this is like you're hurting business continuity, and you are giving admin access to everybody, which is amazing. It's like such a smooth thing to do, right? The best thing to do. I was being sarcastic over there, just in case if people listening later online doesn't get it. So, but that was the. I just dropped my conversation after that. Like, there's no point in selling things here, right? Let them, go through the journey and then realize before it's too late, right? But then these are the things which people are doing in real world, and these are the companies where your financial systems and credit cards and everybody is sitting, right?
Yes,
Just imagine how things are operating, and they were claiming that the providers are aware of this and they are actually advocating this.
yes, that is too true. Too true. I have seen that. My example is modified a bit from yours because there was one departmental account that everyone had the password to, and it was an admin account.
Yeah,
I said, "What is going on here?"
some some fancy stuff going on.
Yeah, yeah, really. Okay, next for Arun.
So yeah, so Satish, you can go ahead. Like I can catch up from here.
Yeah, one of the example I could think of is, again, I think I did bring this up during this call. That is the laptops and the mobile phone. So what will happen if you lose them, right? And a lot of people lose them. So unless it is possible to break in also, and then once you try to, if the credentials are very easy to guess, if you are into the network, you get access of everything. So so this is where we looked at seriously, and then zero trust least privilege is what uh, we went ahead with, and then especially the time-based access. So it played a major role by locking the account if the validation doesn't. I mean, they need to uh, validate, and that is one. And second thing is it automatically, if somebody says that something is lost, automatically it has to remove all the accesses immediately, all the privileges. So we went ahead and did that, so which solved the issue.
Thank you, Satish. Arun, do you have anything?
Yeah, so one as Satish mentioned, right, like the time-based access will be given more insight to the to the least privilege access. So if somebody needs a I mean admin level of access or whatever, right? So they need a certain window that they should not require for the entire day life. So if you provide an access, I mean privilege access for a certain window, they can do their operation and then they can work on they can come back like they can come back to the normal role, then they can do the daily operation. They don't need to be retain a privilege access for all the time.
Thank you, thank you.
Odie,
So
I'll
we'll
just
go.
one small request we can ask, we can give, I think we have just 5 minutes. We can ask somebody from the audience if they have any questions, we can answer.
Okay, yeah. Is there anyone that has joined us in the audience that has a question for the panel? All right, while we are waiting on a question from the audience, we'll go ahead and have final insights from the panel, starting with Abhishek. Do you have any final insights as it relates to least privilege and zero trust?
See, my experience is that every organization is different, right? So there is like everybody running behind the buzzwords and all that, but it is important to for the board of the company to work together and understand the priorities of their company. um, you know the positive thing which is happening is that people have started adding CISOs to the board and started calling security professionals to the board meeting. So these strategies are becoming critical. So I would just like to request, you know, don't trust the whole activity or user activity which is happening in your company, but have a little bit more trust in your security team that they mean good, and they're trying to safeguard your crown jewels, so there will be no business left to grow or to save if it gets impacted badly. So I mean, these are essential parts of the business. So I would just like to request the especially the tech community to kind of have more faith in the security teams.
as a cyber guy, that's music to my ears, and we all vote you to be chair of the board now, Abhishek. Okay, Satish, how about you? Any final insights?
Yeah, what I see is zero trust concept as a we need to simplify this better because it is quite complex. It's not easy to understand. Even I took quite a while to understand what exactly is zero trust model, what is zero trust. I mean, although everybody knows about zero trust, we need to simplify it much better, especially for the leadership team. They should be able to understand the nuances better. They should be able to know the importance of it. So uh, things like spreading the knowledge, like what we are doing, um, the fireside chat, and simplifying the zero trust and helping them understand what is the crux of the issue and how it could be solved by zero trust model. It will go a long way. So yeah, with that, I would like to.
Hey,
We have a question that came in from the audience, so from Yamanish. The question is, in the implementation of zero trust and operational health monitoring, can data visualization or building machine learning be useful? Uh, what could be some good use cases that can support the implementation? That final question, that last question is tough, but I'll just give a crack at it and say yes. I think data visualizations and dashboards equipped with machine learning could be quite effective for least privilege, but I don't have any use cases offhand, so I'll pass it to our expert panel to see if you have any use cases in mind for that.
Arun, you want to take that?
So yeah, so if you see like many of the tools are they are using like machine learning to visualization that what are the and they means they are scanning the entire organization IDPs and then monitoring the in and out what are the traffic getting in or what are the unauthorized access getting in, all visualized and showing it on the monitoring. So that the way we can able to identify what are the risks or what are the daily risks, what are the weekly risks. So based on that, we can tune and modify the infrastructure depending on the policy or whatever. So do you want to go ahead, Abhishek? Anything
Yeah,
to
no, thank you. That's good enough. That addresses a lot very important use case, right? Yaminish, I hope that answers your question for you. And
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that helps.
thank you. Odi, I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about you and your effort as well, if that's okay, right? So Odi here, he is an army veteran, right? And he is a very seasoned cybersecurity professional, as you guys must have, uh, figured it out by now. And and I just wanted to thank Odi for joining us from his busy schedule. He is, kind of running multiple efforts to, contribute to this community. Odi runs his own service company or consulting company with securities, cyber security, and but the major, thing which connected us with Odi was that he runs Diversity Global organization. It's a non-profit organization, and then they, teach underprivileged section of the society and the community about cybersecurity techniques, help them prepare for the certifications, and help them to get placed in cybersecurity related jobs, which I believe is a very noble way of doing things. All right, so Odi, why don't you take a couple of minutes and educate us a little bit about your effort with Diversity Global?
That might be one of the best introductions that I've had. So thank you, Abhishek. And yes, it is our mission to train residents of underserved communities to enter the cybersecurity and technology workforce. We have a few different technology workforce development programs, and our goal is to be able to establish a sustainable and diverse talent pipeline to the workforce. We welcome global scholars, as all our programs are virtual based. We do have scholarships to provide to Google, Coursera tech programs. So if you are interested, I will go ahead and type our site in the chat now. Feel free to share with a friend or a few friends. And ultimately, we are welcoming instructors and mentors to join our mission, to be able to help people in need ultimately, because technology is the foundation of business now, right? Technology is industry agnostic. In order to remain employable, you must know technology skills. So I believe we can best serve this demand by being a community that serves the community. So thank you for the time, and thank you for allowing me to be a moderator.
Thank you for very much, Odi, and thank you, Satish, for organizing this. It was really fun and interesting, and I hope we get to do this again. And thank you everybody who joined. So Satish, over to you for the final remarks.
Thanks everybody for joining, especially from the audience, taking time and joining this. Really appreciate it. And for all the people in the discussion in the panel, definitely thank you so much for making this happen for the SFO chapter.
Thank you
Take
guys.
care.
Take care.